Hi, in this demonstration I'm going to talk about the major components of extended range electric vehicles produced by General Motors as I understand them. I will be using my Cadillac ELR as a model. Everything I'm going to talk about will apply to the ELR, and most of it to some extent will apply to the Chevrolet Volt. The specifics of the Volt I am not aware of. Now what you're looking at is the driver's side of my 2014 Cadillac ELR. It's an extended range electric vehicle, and right where my mouse is moving in a circle right there, I'm circling the access port to charge the vehicle. There's a 15-foot cord that comes with the vehicle as a standard accessory that allows me to plug it into a standard household outlet. I've yet to run into a household outlet that I cannot use. Now the wheels are turned by electric motors. So these cars are in fact they are truly electric cars. Electric motors is what turns the wheels when the car is being driven. And when the car is not being driven and plugged in, the power supply is being charged. And the power supply is approximately the same length of I've been told is approximately the same length of the passenger compartment, and it comes to a T under the back seat. And as the car is being driven, the power supply is being depleted to some point, and the computer inside the vehicle monitors the state of charge of the system. And the computer knows when to tell the engine to start. The computer monitors a lot of things. It knows the level of fuel in the gas tank. It knows the temperature of the outside air. It knows the temperature inside the compartment. And it also monitors the temperature of the casing that the battery is contained within. The battery is maintained at a set temperature to try to optimize efficiency. One of the larger concerns that I have about my ELR is I hope that I don't keep gas in the gas tank too long before the gas gets too old to be used well without hurting the internals of the engine, of the generator, because gasoline does in fact have a shelf life. However, the engineers in Cadillac and at Chevrolet, the GM engineers were good enough to calculate that to program that into the vehicle so that the vehicle can calculate the estimated octane rating of the fuel that's in the gas tank based on the last time the car was had fuel added to it. And the car periodically goes into maintenance mode. If, for example, I don't run my engine for a certain amount of time, I don't know what the criteria is, but as I understand it, if the car is not ran, if the engine is not started or the generator is not used for a certain amount of time, then the computer knows how long it's been since the generator was started, the generator being the gas engine. The computer, if time has gone, too much time has gone by, the computer will start the generator to keep the internal parts well lubricated. Because after all, you can't drive an electric car and have a gasoline engine as a generator and never start the generator up, because if you don't start it, if you drive around and you don't use it, and then when the generator is needed, the internal parts will seize up and freeze together, and it won't be useful. And the engineers were good enough to take that into consideration. And let's see. Again, this is the left side, or the driver's side, of my 2014 Cadillac ELR. And there's the the access door to plug the car in. And on the front of the vehicle, you see something that looks like a radiator. It is, in fact, not a radiator. My suspicion is that the designers of the automobile decided to make it look like a radiator so that it is not visually shocking to the general public. I disagree with that a little bit because I'm glad kept kept the Cadillac style in the vehicle to the vehicle. I think it could be slightly different though to show that it is special because the car is very special as far as the way it runs. I think I mentioned what goes on under the hood. Let's see. As I'm driving the car, and I can go anywhere from 38 to 40 miles on one full charge, depending upon the conditions, the driving conditions, and how I'm driving that day. I think Cadillac advertised approximately 36 miles on one full charge. If I got only 36 miles on one full charge based on my past experience, I would think something was going wrong with my car. But I can go anywhere between 38 to 40 miles on one full charge. And the same holds true for the Chevrolet Volt. And let's see. And that all adds up to greatly increase fuel efficiency. Being able to drive 38 to 40 miles without using any gasoline has resulted in me having a lifetime miles per gallon average on my automobile of 81.9. This is as of November 1st, 2015. 81.9 is my overall average. And I drive the car around the city on the highway, it doesn't matter because the first 40 miles of the first 100 miles that I drive on any given day is typically gasoline free. So after I leave my house tomorrow morning, the first 40 miles I will drive using absolutely zero gas. And the way the ELR calculates my lifetime MPG or MPG period is it uses the number of gallons of gasoline used and the number of miles traveled. So for example, let's look at my last driving session. I drove 23.4 miles total, and it's showing I averaged 250 plus miles per gallon for that 23.4 miles. And that's based on the number of miles driven and the number of gallons of gas used. And as high as the screen will show is 250 plus. It doesn't go any higher. Whenever I use no gas, it always shows 250 plus. And the lifetime is calculated the same way. It's calculated using the total number of miles driven for the lifetime of the vehicle and the total number of gallons of gas used for the lifetime of the vehicle. And based on those two numbers, my lifetime average is 81.9. Now, if I can drive 23.4 total miles using zero gasoline, why is my lifetime well below 100 miles per gallon? Well, the reason for that is because periodically I do drive out of town or out of state. I leave the state of North Carolina every once in a while. And when I do that, I get anywhere from 36 to 38 miles per gallon because I can't plug the car in. Electricity or electrical outlets are not as abundant as they should be. I don't think, and that brings me down, but well below 100 miles per gallon. But I'm approaching an all-time high now of 81.9, and this is as of yesterday, November 1st. today on the 2nd, my car is now showing me a lifetime of 82.0. Because once again, I drove around the city without using any gasoline at all. So my point of explaining all of this is that looking at it from one viewpoint and saying, well, only 30 miles on one charge, it's not worth it. That's not true. That is not true to say that. That's looking at it from only one viewpoint, and it's a very stiff viewpoint to take. Because being able to drive my first 40 miles gas free has caused me to have an average of 81.9 mpg. And I personally do not know of any other automobile that can beat 82 miles per gallon. Not at all. And the cars do not feel like they're underpowered at all. They have very good acceleration. Sure, it's now performance enthusiasts would possibly make fun of my 0 to 60 acceleration time, but my vehicle accelerates from 0 to 60 in less than 10 seconds. That's pretty damn good, considering that I use absolutely no gasoline at all. And when I drive on the highway, another thing that contributes to this 81.9 miles per gallon is that when a car is not being plugged in, when I don't plug the car in, and I'm driving out of town, I turn the generator on. It comes on in range extending mode. What range extending mode does is it does two things at one time. It allows me to keep driving the car and it adds to the state of charge of the power supply. And because I'm out of town or out of state, possibly, once I can monitor the state of charge of the power supply, and when I feel like it, I can just push a button on the middle console to turn the generator off, and then I can again drive the car without the generator or the engine running. So once again, I'm running without the generator, without using any gasoline at all, because once the generator runs, it can start in range extending mode, which I typically use. That's absolutely phenomenal. I love it. It's very difficult for me to not get over. It's very unusual for me to not get over 100 miles per gallon on any given day, even when I use gasoline. There was a commute that I was making that was about approximately 50 miles. And sometimes I would use a quarter of a tank. I mean, no, not a quarter of a tank, but a quarter of a gallon. And every once in a while, I would use a half of a gallon of gas to go approximately 50 miles. And that oftentimes resulted in me getting, well, it was almost always over 100 miles per gallon average. And every once in a while, it would approach 200 miles per gallon for that trip. So the extended range electric vehicles produced by General Motors, that is by Cadillac and by Chevrolet, are absolutely phenomenal vehicles. They will save you money. And as a matter of fact, speaking of the Volt, my first extended range electric vehicle was a Chevy Volt. But and it was the first four-door car that I purchased, but I purchased it only for one reason, because my research indicated that it would probably save me a lot of money. And my research was correct. It did in fact save me a lot of money. There was one week I remember a couple of years ago when I had my Volt. I was mowing my lawn. My lawn was approximately 1/4 acre, and I used More gasoline mowing my lawn in one day than I used in my Chevrolet Volt in 2 weeks. My lawnmower held 2 gallons of gas. I used 2 gallons of gas mowing my lawn in one day, and that was more than I used in my Chevrolet Volt in 2 weeks. And the price of gas fluctuates so wildly. It's like the price, it's like the temperature, it's like the weather. Um, I think gas right now is, it depends on the state that you're in, I suppose. But as you know, the price of gasoline fluctuates so wildly. But the extended range electric vehicles are absolutely phenomenal in their performance and the way that they run. I don't believe that General Motors, that is Cadillac and Chevrolet, have done enough to educate the public on the benefits of these cars. The Chevrolet Volt was the first electric vehicle that I purchased, and the only reason I purchased it was because I got tired of pumping gas every week into my Corvette. I was a true hardcore Corvette fan, and it took a lot for me to leave the Corvette and go to the Chevy Volt because I'm not a four-door kind of guy. But then I decided that I did want a two-door coupe, but I did not want to go back to pumping gas again. And that's when I went to the ELR. The ELR allows me to drive and ride in great comfort and high quality materials. If the materials in the ELR are any indication of what the materials in other Cadillacs are like, then I would venture to say that the materials used in all Cadillacs are absolutely outstanding. I've driven a Mercedes, I've driven a BMW, and the ELR far exceeds any of them. And that's it. Thank you for watching. Hi, in this presentation I'm going to talk about the importance of men knowing what their PSA level is to detect prostate cancer. And I'm also going to show you a CyberKnife patient education video, a portion of the CyberKnife patient education video. Now, I am a prostate cancer survivor. My doctor, Dr. David Scott Moss, detected the possibility that I may have prostate cancer by reviewing my PSA score, and he saw that over a period of 36 months, my PSA level had risen dramatically, and he strongly urged me to have it checked out. He referred me to a specialist who in fact determined via biopsy that I did have prostate cancer. I searched for an alternative after hearing of stories of the side effects of the surgery. I searched desperately for an alternative, and I found the CyberKnife. What I'm going to show you now is a portion of the CyberKnife patient education video. On the custom body cradle made during the setup process. Okay, what you're looking at right now pretty much is pretty much how I went through my treatments, my CyberKnife treatments. You see the robot rotating around the patient while he's still fully dressed? That's exactly what happened to me. I was fully dressed every day I had to go through 5 treatments every day for 5 days in a row. Each treatment took 45 minutes a day, and I drove to each treatment. I drove to and from work during the entire week. And the biggest inconvenience to me was I had to stop off and lay there for 45 minutes. Again, remaining fully dressed. There was absolutely no cutting, and there was no interruption between my wife's and I intimate life. And it got to the point where I felt I became paranoid because I was looking for a side effect. I could find none.
But the CyberKnife is an absolutely glorious tool, and it cured my prostate cancer in 2007. It is now 2015, and I can comfortably say that my prostate cancer was cured by the CyberKnife. And thanks to my doctor finding my PSA levels had gone up, they estimate that had I not been had it not been caught early, that it would have been about 10 to 15 years before I would have seen any side effects. So that's in itself speaks for the important, well, before I would have seen any symptoms, not side effects. It would have been 10 to 15 years before I would have seen any symptoms of prostate cancer. So that speaks well to the importance of men knowing their PSA scores. And the CyberKnife is a fantastic, absolutely fantastic weapon that allows us to not have to go under the knife to be cured of prostate cancer.